We enter Canongate, the former entry into the city by the canons of Holyrood Abbey. This was later used to house the higher nobility in the great days of the Old Town. It was here that Boswell met Dr. Johnson in August 1773, a few days before they set off on their famous journey to the Hebrides. On Canongate you will find 3 outlets of prestige Scotland. The first outlet is packed with t-shirts, flags, postcards and much else for the visitor. Opposite is Murray House, built in 1625 for the Dowager Duchess of Home and inherited in 1643 by her daughter, the Countess of Murray. While staying in the house in 1645, Cromwell was said to have reached the terrible conclusion that the king must be executed. Some 5 years later, the great royalist Montrose passed en route to his execution at the Lawn Market and was jeered and spat on by a party on the balcony of Murray House. The party included the first Marquess of Argyll, himself executed soon after the subsequent restoration of the monarchy. A few doors along is the superb wine and spirit merchants, Cadenhead's, which is Scotland's oldest independent bottler of whisky, rum, gin and cognac, established in 1842. The distilling industry once consisted of numerous independent family-owned distilleries, who used bottlers like Cadenhead's. All this has changed with the global players owning the distilleries, but Cadenhead has remained proud and independent, and is today owned by the same family who also owns Springbank Distillery in Campbelltown. This distillery is one of the oldest in the country to be in the hands of descendants of the original founder. The aroma, atmosphere and ambience of Cadenhead's all help to recreate the very essence of the spirit of Scotland, in every sense of the term. Cadenhead's also have another retail outlet in London and have a first-class online facility. Next door, at 187 Canongate, is the second outlet of prestige, Simply Scottish, which specialises in quality Scottish gifts, including a range of items in 100% pewter, alongside clan crests and crystal. A fine range of hand-woven tweed hats and scarves from our sponsor, Islay Woolen Mill, are also available. This Hebridean woolen mill, dating from the 16th century, is the oldest working mill in Great Britain, weaving tartans and tweeds for films such as Braveheart, Rob Roy and Kidnapped. The Abbey Kirk was an earlier chapel for the Knights of the Thistle, converted in 1688 into Canongate Kirk for royal worship. It's still used by royalty today, and here lies the grave and at the gates a statue of Robert Ferguson, said to have much inspired Burns. Although they never met, Burns paid for his headstone. Adam Smith, the economist, is also buried here. The final store in the prestige group is at 112 Canongate, the best for Scotland. A great wee shop, packed with Scottish gifts, hats, scarves, music, and it offers kilt sales and hire. Towards the bottom of the Canongate, you will find the Genuine Article, which features a quality selection of handcrafted Scottish gifts and crafts. At the bottom of the hill is the new Scottish Parliament, opened in 2004, 3 years late and 10 times over budget. It took 6 years to build, saw the death of its creators, and has suffered under a blizzard of bad publicity. The ultra-modern design is said to be inspired by a famous painting by none other than Sir Henry Raeburn of the Reverend Walker skating on nearby Duddingston Loch. It consists of 1,200 tonnes of structural steel, some 25,000 cubic metres of concrete, and cost over £400 million, and is in fact 11 buildings in total, linked by corridors. One is Queensberry House, built in 1650 for the Duke of Queensberry, who was perhaps a little ironically one of the main signatories on the Act of Union in 1707. The Act saw the disbandment of the Scottish Parliament and the transfer of power to Westminster. On the night of the signing, the Duke's son, who was mentally ill and usually locked in the attic, escaped and was found to have roasted a young servant on the open fire. The fireplace is still a feature of the refurbished building. The site was historically known as Watergate, one political satire that perhaps luckily seems to have eluded the press to date. It was also an inn sanctuary until about 1880 and acted as refuge for debtors who could not be arrested there. The Palace of Holyrood House sits next to the Parliament and lends its name to the building. At one stage a much neglected royal palace, it has been restored over recent years. The name may come from the relic of the True Cross brought here by Queen Margaret, later removed by Edward. Or some say as the result of a vision had here by David I whilst chasing a white stag, which turned and faced up to the monarch. The palace has been twice destroyed by the English. What we see today was rebuilt by Sir William Bruce. The palace was yet another favoured by the Stuarts, and Bonnie Prince Charlie was the last one to stay there. It's perhaps best known for its link to Mary Queen of Scots, who lived at the palace for 6 years, and this was the scene of the murder of her secretary, David Riccio. To the rear of the palace rises Holyrood Park, consisting of 648 acres of open hill, with roads and lochs laid out in 1856 by Prince Albert. The summit, Arthur's Seat, is the deeply eroded remnant of a long, extinct volcano.